Hey, what's going on? I'm Brandon America, and today we're gonna dive right in and I'm gonna show you guys how to master your camera in manual mode and go over the top 5 settings that you need to learn to master. We've got the frame rate, the shutter speed, the aperture, your ISO, and your white balance. So let's dive right in. All right, so today I'm gonna show you these 5 settings on the Canon 80D. And if you don't have the same camera, that's fine. The settings are universal for any camera. This will allow you to master your camera, your gear, and get those shots that you're looking for. All right, what you wanna do is make sure that you are filming or doing photos in manual mode so that you can actually adjust the settings exactly the way you want and you don't use the camera's algorithm to kind of tell you what it thinks is best. All right, great. So now that we have our camera set to manual mode, the first step is to select the frame rate. So in order to do that, we want to click on this little Q at the top right. And if it's not selected, then you want to select this button over here that's almost in the top left, and you'll see some numbers in there. Well, each one of these numbers, like this one in particular, is 60 frames a second. This one is 24 frames per second. Now, if we want to do slow mode, then we want to be on 60. And if we want to do cinematic shots, we want to be on 24. So we're going to select 24 frames per second. The next thing we want to do is set the shutter speed. And you can find that down here in the bottom left corner. And rule of thumb is you want your shutter speed to be twice of whatever frame rate you're using. So in this case, we want ours to be as close to 48 as possible. So let's select here, it's actually on 60, and let's go over to 50. Well, 50 is the closest that we can get on this particular camera, so we're just gonna leave it and rock with 50. Now, if we were on 60 frames a second, then what we wanna do is come over here to the 125. That's gonna be the absolute closest. Now what you'll notice is as I adjust the shutter speed, you notice the shorter the shutter speed, the more light that gets into the camera, the faster the shutter speed, the less light that gets into the camera. So like I said, just remember that 2 times rule and you'll be great. The next thing we want to do is look at the aperture on our lens. In order to find that, you can look on the face of your lens and you'll see usually 2 different types of number. One that'll give you the millimeter, which is how wide or how far zoomed in that lens will allow you to go. But the other number is your aperture, and your aperture basically lets you know how much light you can get into the camera. So the lower the number of the aperture, the more light you can get in. The higher the number of the aperture, the less light it's gonna get in. So on a bright sunny day, you might need to crank the aperture number up, and in low dark environments, you might wanna crank it down in order to get enough light. So right here next to the shutter, you'll notice there's a 4.5, and this is where we can actually adjust the aperture to go up to a higher number. You notice there's less and less light. In order to combat this, even though right now you can tell there's not a lot of light coming through there, the next step is to come over here to our ISO, which is on the bottom right of the screen, select it and scroll over until you can basically get enough light in your camera to where you can see what the image really looks like. And what we're aiming for is to use our meter on the camera, which is down here in the bottom center, and this will show us what our exposure level is. So we're trying to adjust all these levels to get the best exposure level and the best quality. When you can turn the ISO down low, that's gonna give you the best quality out of your camera sensor. And sometimes you're just in low light situations and you have to turn it up. So the higher you go, the more light, digital brightness that it brings in, but the more grain you're gonna get into your picture, so the less professional it's gonna look, okay? So the last thing that we wanna do when we're setting this thing up, let's brighten that up so you'll see a little more. And watch the colors. So basically this last one is called white balance, and we want the whites in this picture to be pure white. We don't want them to be orange, or we don't want them to be blue. But like I said, last thing, click on the Q again, come over here to this K, and K stands for Kelvin. And you do have some presets down here at the bottom that you can select, but when we're in manual mode, we want to hit the K and where the 5600 is, and that's actually where it's set to right now. So if I go down lower on this number, you'll notice that it'll start turning blue. So now we're at 2500 on the Kelvin, and it's turning more of a blue color. And as we go up, it'll go all the way up to 10,000. It'll start turning more of an orange tungsten color, and just depends on the lighting that you have, what you need to set this Kelvin temperature to. All right, guys, there you go. Those are the top 5 settings in your camera that you need to learn to master. We've got the frame rate, the shutter speed, the aperture, your ISO, and your white balance. Once you learn to master those, you will definitely see big results and you'll start getting those cinematic shots that you're really looking for. So if you guys have any more comments or any questions, please drop them down below in the comment section. And if you're not subscribed, please go ahead and consider hitting that subscribe button. And again, I'm Brandon America. For more videos like this, stay tuned. Peace and love.